please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Hi there, good afternoon. This is Your Stocks. I'm Mangla Malu. With me is Ekta Batra. Ekta, looks like a good afternoon for our markets. Just as we speak, the Nifty is at the high point of the day, recovered about 100 points from the low point of today's trading session. And if you take a look at how aggressive the bulls are getting after this recovery, the 10,500 put saw a lot of writing on Friday's trading session. And as we speak, that one's added close to around 9 lakh shares in open interest, indicating that yes, maybe there is firm support. Individual stocks, they're moving higher. Kotak Mahindra Bank should come up for you. That one, as our ticker team is alerting us, in fact, is just about 150 odd crore less than SBI's market cap. Perhaps may have even crossed SBI's market cap.
Yes, absolutely, Manglam. You know, if you just glance at how exactly Kotak has outperformed in terms of a year-to-date performance as compared to all of its private as well as PSU bank peers, it is quite obvious to see the kind of trajectory that Kotak has been on. So if you just pull up a year-to-date chart for Kotak, it's gained around 15% odd. Compare this to State Bank of India, which has lost 19% at the same point in time, ICICI Bank, which has lost over 8% odd, and something like an Axis, which has underperformed on a year-to-date basis by around close to 5% odd. So it is a stark and complete outperformance that we're seeing, especially for Kotak on a year-to-date basis as compared to its peers. We're not only talking about 12 months. There's been a lot of news which has taken place only in terms of the banks within this year, within 2018, and compared to that, Kotak has managed to outperform all of its peers 15% higher on a year-to-date basis, and now has overtaken State Bank of India in terms of market capitalization. But more on that in just a bit. Let's take you through all of the top stories that we're tracking, and then we're going to get answering all of your queries as well. Tracking this afternoon, well, let's introduce our guests. We have Gaurang Shah and Prakash Gaba, who are here to answer all of your stock queries. Well, afternoon, gentlemen. Gaurang and Prakash, you know, before we get talking about all of our queries, I just wanted a quick word from both of you all on Kotak Mahindra Bank and what you would be proposing to clients from here on. Gaurang, you go first.
Thank you, Ekta, and good afternoon to all of you all. You know, purely if you look at private sector banks, especially banks like Kotak, or even as a matter of fact, IndusInd Bank, you know, these have been an outperformers. And if you actually look at the last multiple quarterly earnings, then every time the earnings have come out, the bar has been raised. And as a disclosure, Ekta, we do maintain a positive coverage on both Kotak Bank as well as IndusInd Bank. And from a long-term perspective, our sense is that you know, there is a lot to be seen in terms of the evolution of these private sector banks into a much more larger player. And I would not be surprised in the quarters to come by. I don't think, forget about disappointment, Ekta. I think one will have to reascertain the estimates, because there have been times when both these banks have actually outsmarted the estimates that people have on street. And my belief is that if you're invested, stay invested. If you're not, currently at current levels, you can start, don't deploy everything at one time. Start some amount of deployment, and then on corrections you can go on adding to these banks, and they are a must in a portfolio as far as the banking sector goes.
All right, Gaurang, thanks a lot for that. Let's go straight then to our caller. We have Ravi Shankar calling us from Uttar Pradesh with a query. Has investments in ITC. Ravi Shankar?
Yeah.
Hi, go ahead.
I have yeah. Sir, I have 300 ITC at the rate of 275 rupees. What should I do?
Are you a long-term investor?
Yeah. I am a long-term investor.
All right. Prakash, ITC has been hovering around that 250 to 260 range for a while now, after falling from levels of 320 earlier. What would you say? Is it a buy for a long-term, or he's a long-term investor, has it at 275?
Very good stock for long-term. Simple. I like the structure, seen some kind of a fall, and the fall is now it's trading somewhere closer to strong support. So the place to buy is just right. Just buy and hold for long term. Don't worry, it's a good stock.
Okay, so that's the view coming in on ITC. Gaurang, what would you recommend?
So again, you know, we maintained a positive view despite the fact that there were certain overhangs when that entire GST structure rolled out, and then there was some realization and the GST structure was again revised and brought it back to the earlier level. The most important thing, Ekta, about ITC is that what we have noticed is the other businesses which have started to contribute to the balance sheet. And I don't think that the long dependency that was there in terms of tobacco related products and cigarette business, I think slowly and steadily you've seen contribution coming in from other businesses. As a disclosure, from a long-term point of view, we maintained a target of I think 340, 345 or thereabouts. So stay invested, and I think it's a great theme. FMCG is something that we are extremely positive on.
All right, so that's the view coming in from both our fundamental and technical expert. A good point to stay invested in ITC from a long-term perspective. But let's move on. We have Krishnaji Rao calling us from Tamil Nadu with a query. He has investments in Bosch. Go ahead, Krishna.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I have one share of Bosch, bought some 4 months ago. Hello?
Yep, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Some 4 months ago, I bought one share of Bosch around 20,800. I would like to know whether it's worth holding it further or should I come out of it?
Okay, are you open to buying more if as recommended by our experts?
No. If there is some, I could wait for another 1 year, and I could even use it. But it is sliding. That's why I'm asking.
All right, fair point there. Prakash, I'll take it straight to you. He said it's sliding. Do you think there is a support somewhere?
I think I like the structure of Bosch. It's positive. The corrections are there. The corrections being absorbed. It's bounced from a very strong support of 17,000. So it's a hold. Now, question is, should you add? Yes, you should add. Either go. It looks like the target is around 23,000. 23,000 to 23,500. It can take its own sweet time to go there. The choice is whether you want to go without it or with it. It's going up. I would add it.
Okay, all right. So that's the word coming in on Bosch, but we do have an exclusive story coming in now. We understand Finance Ministry is continuing to ask for a substantive relaxation from the Reserve Bank of India on its 12th Feb NPA circular. Senior government officials have said an additional 180 days before a case is referred to the IBC should be given to enable an out-of-court settlement. Sapna Das has all of these exclusive details for us. Sapna, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So this is in pursuance to what we have been reporting since last 2 to 3 odd weeks. Earlier, we had heard that government had asked for relaxation in that 1-day default period, but at that point in time, it didn't appear to be very, very substantive. There was also no clear outline as to relaxing this 1-day default period to how many days, 30 days, 60 days. So on. But, now we understand that it's not just about this 1-day period that we are talking about. Basically, what they are saying now is that, 180 days is a normal period for a case to be resolved under the insolvency in the bankruptcy code. But before it hits the IBC, 180 days should be given before that. So basically what you're looking at is probably 180 plus 180 which would be like, almost a year, 360 days. So 180 before it goes to IBCs, and that will settle everything. The 1-day default period will disappear. Banks probably get time to, work things out. Additional provisioning may not be required. As it is, the NPA norm so far has not changed. That is, the provisioning is required only after 90-day period if the default continues. So basically, this is a way of the government trying to lessen the provisioning burden on the public sector banks and indirectly on its own self. At the same time, also trying to make sure that, the IBC is not rushed with too many cases right now. But earlier on, last week also, there was a meeting here, at the Parliament. There was a standing committee meeting here. So the sense at that point in time that we had got was that probably Reserve Bank of India may not play ball. So we have to wait and watch and see which direction this really heads in. But the government has really made a strong pitch in terms of trying to give some relief on this 12th February NPA circular, and their effort as of now continues till RBI clarifies officially.
All right, Sapna, thanks a lot for that. In fact, Lata joins in now. Lata, your comment on what Sapna is just saying as far as asking for further 180 days for, resolution of the cases referred to IBC, and you're gathering something on IDBI Bank as well?
No, the flashes were there.
Okay.
Most importantly, on the Feb 12 circular, I was waiting all these days why this demand hasn't come. This 180-day period not being enough. Actually, what the Reserve Bank said is for all loans over 2,000 crore, If they are stressed, we give you 6 months. Either you resolve it, if you don't, you take it to the IBC. Now, what the government appears to be asking is give us not 180, but 180 plus 180 days, give us 1 year. This will, of course, ease two things. It will give more time for things to turn around. And more importantly, once a case goes to NCLT, you have to make 50% provisioning. In the first year of NPA, you make only 15% provisioning. So there's a vast difference in terms of amount of provisioning that banks have to put in. Now, well, emotionally and logically, I think the government, RBI should not yield. Firstly, you know, the RBI may find itself dragged to court. You know, the first 12 cases were dragged to IBC. After that, they came to the next 40. Now they have come to the next lot, which is cases about 2,000 crore. They are bound by law to be equal to all defaulters, and they are only spacing it out because of the bandwidth of the bankruptcy courts. So that's the only reason why they've spaced it out, and therefore sooner or later they will have to do this. The second thing is pushing back the deadline removes the sting to solve the problem. There are about 30 power companies, and you all would know these well. I just brought that list along with me. GMR Barodara, Haldia Energy, Sasan Power, DB Power, the Korba West Power Company. These are not listed companies. Some of them are even state-owned. SR Power Gujarat Limited, Lanco Kondapalli, Lanco Baband. So many of them are, you know, some of them are gas-based and therefore nobody will buy them, even if you took it to the NCLT. So many of them, actually almost 42,000 megawatts of power, which is, you know, a total of about 1.2 lakh crore, has no PPA. I mean, if you don't have a PPA, even if you take it to the NCLT, do you think a Tata Power or anybody will come and buy it? Why will they buy it if there is no seller agreement? So they will go into liquidation. It is going to be a hard blow, but it will be a blow whenever you bring it. What is the point in keeping it on the bank's books and pretending the problem doesn't exist? So, I mean, I hope the Reserve Bank doesn't bend. I'm sure they are fighting with every weapon in their arsenal to ensure that they don't bend. The way to solve it is that state governments and central governments should give money to DISCOMs to buy power. They should stop pilfering of power. They should stop AT&C losses. You have to strengthen the DISCOM. You can't loot the banks and tell them that you continue to fund a power company, power from which is not being bought by the DISCOMs, because the DISCOMs are allowing their power to be pilfered and not paid for. The system's incompetencies and inefficiencies can't be made to paid for by banks. That nonsense has to stop at some point in time. That is what the Reserve Bank is saying. It's blowing a whistle, saying this waste of money has to stop. I mean, I don't know. It's a battle that they will have to fight with all their might. I don't see the government giving in very easily. I don't see the RBI giving in very easily.
Okay, well, Lata, we have a reaction coming in. We have Ashwin Parekh joining in to discuss this. Ashwin, you know, if you've just heard us talking, what are your first thoughts in terms of the government's proposal? And do you think that the Reserve Bank of India would even consider it?
Well, I mean, you know, you're getting the stance from the Reserve Bank of India very clear. I mean, two things the Reserve Bank of India did. One is, very strictly, it has said that the provisioning norms must be followed. The second one is, the minute, you know, the NCLT process was introduced, I mean, the circular said that they should remove the SDR, S4 and the other processes. So the provisioning part, the RBI is very clear in their mind. They want the balance sheet of the banking system to be cleaned up as much as possible, and the correct capital that is required by the banking system, you know, the public sector particularly, that must be identified. So, I mean, I would certainly say that even if the government does come out with, you know, a view on this, and of course from the shareholders' point of view, they may have this kind of a requirement, but the regulator, I must say, should hold, and he shouldn't really give in on something like this. There is no market for some of the assets. I mean, what's the point then in that case? Whether it's 180 days or 360 days, what's the point?
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Parekh, for joining us with your thoughts. Well, one can only hope. We have to wait and see what happens, to what extent the Reserve Bank is willing to give in. But it's a difficult task. You know, it is no one's baby. That is the problem. A power generator. The problem lies with the DISCOM. There are a zillion state governments that have to be taken on board. Solving, you know, stopping power theft. We know what happens in Ganesh Pandals and we know what happens in Durga Pandals. Power is stolen all the time in India. AT&C losses have to stop. Now, who bells the cat? You know, this is an administrative problem, and I can see the government, you know, not happy with this proposal.
Lata, if in case this does come through, what would the provisioning relief be for banks?
Huge. I mean, in the first place, there is a relief on power companies. You will see those stocks rising. The more important point will be for, you know, like I told you, the total amount of bad assets is 1.7 lakh crore at least, if you count gas-based and, you know, projects without PPAs. I think 51,000 megawatts, let me assume that Mundra people will not default. It is Tatas and Adanis. They are deep-pocketed. If you count them, then it goes to 2.4 or something. If you remove that, then it would be close to 2 lakh crore. If for 2 lakh crore, you know, at least half of it you don't have to provide. You imagine the relief for the banks. It will be huge. Many of them are going to post red for 2-3 quarters in a row. That will be saved. But that is, you know, an existing stretch that is not being recognized. But doesn't really change actuality, but yes, it changes the financial numbers.
Looking good for the market actually. A century on the Sensex, Nifty, mid-caps as well as the Nifty Bank, all the 4 frontline indices at the high point of the day as we speak. And pull up the advanced decline ratio. If you take a look at the mid-caps, the advanced decline ratio is at the narrowest as it has been all through today's trading session. Opened with 3 stocks in the red for 1 in the green, still favoring declines. But remember, the advances are fast catching up. A couple of stocks from the mid-cap space that warrant attention. The likes of PVR, that one's moved to the high point of the day. We have Container Corp 2. That one too has suddenly spiked to the high point of the day. A couple of these NBFCs doing fairly well too. Gold finance companies, for instance. Muthoot Finance too is at the high point of the day. Urban consumption themes, Page Industries, that stock has been fairly strong, up 12% this month so far. And Page Industries too is spiking and is currently at the high point of the day. Sun TV, media stocks also doing fairly well. Dish TV, Sun TV, both of them are buzzing around. All that and more that our ticker team is alerting.